Tyrannosaurus rex is one of the most iconic animals ever, and there's been a big debate recently about did T-Rex have lips? And you can see in this recent book that they actually portray it with lips. Now, to talk about this issue, I've actually invited the guy who not just wrote the book on T-Rexes, but also the sequel to it, which I'm in, by the way. So I am here with Pete Larson. Now, Pete, why are we here today?
Well, by the way, I like this book a lot. Mark Whitten wrote it. He's also one of the authors on this publication, Theropod Dinosaur Facial Reconstruction and the Importance of Soft Tissue in Paleobiology. Now, of course, soft tissue is important for us to understand animals, and we need to have ways of seeing things that aren't really there anymore. Now, we do have some techniques of detecting soft tissue, but we've never been able to detect what we call lips in tyrannosaurs or other theropod dinosaurs. So, knowing from my own experience, I was co-author on a paper that we did not find feathers on Tyrannosaurus rex, but we did find skin for Tyrannosaurus rex. And even though there was no evidence of feathers on Tyrannosaurus rex, that doesn't mean that Tyrannosaurus rex did not have feathers. In other words, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So we're going to go into this and we're going to look at these animals, and we're going to start with the teeth, because I think that's the best place to start if we're talking about lips.
Let's go look at some teeth. Now, Pete, this is quite possibly the most teeth I've ever seen ever in one place. And these are T-Rex teeth, right?
Most of these are T-Rex teeth. There's also Nanotyrannus, which of course is not a juvenile T-Rex.
See our video on that.
Right here is kind of a pile of nano teeth, but the ones right here in front of us, those are T-Rex teeth.
Okay, so make the argument for us, Pete. What do these teeth tell us about Tyrannosaur lips?
So, when we look at teeth, we see certain things like spalling, which is where this tooth hit something very hard and it broke the tooth. And when it broke that tooth, it exposed the dentin, which then is ready to receive wear from something. So here again is that spalled tooth. And this is a dentary tooth. You can tell because it's almost round in cross-section. Dentary teeth have this very round cross-section, where maxillary teeth are somewhat compressed, slightly compressed, like this one right here. And on the maxillary teeth, we see that wear facet on the outside of the maxillary tooth. And on the dentary teeth, we see that on the inside. So this is from the right lower jaw. You can see how the carena come around towards the front of the jaw. That's the serration line. And it's the inside of the tooth that actually has that wear facet on it. Now, the paper that we were just talking about on the lips thought that tooth-on-tooth wear is to explain where we have wear on the teeth, like here. There's another nice spot that shows wear. Well, they said in that paper that is tooth-on-tooth wear. In other words, when these animals were biting through carcasses, when they're biting bone, they are cutting it with this shear-like things. Teeth don't occlude like they do in crocodilians. The teeth actually pass by each other, so the lower jaw passes inside the upper jaw. And they were saying that the wear was tooth-on-tooth wear. Well, it turns out if you have enough teeth and you look at them, you see that the wear on the teeth is not on the inside of the maxillary teeth or on the outside of the dentary teeth, where you would expect tooth-on-tooth wear. Instead, almost in all the cases, the tooth wear is on the outside of the maxilla and on the inside of the dentary. So when we're talking about wear of the teeth, if you look at Stan's skull, most people would think that the wear would be on the inside of the maxillary teeth and the outside of the dentary teeth, if it were tooth-on-tooth wear. But now we know that it's actually tooth-on-bone wear. So what we see is wear on the outside of the maxillary teeth and the inside of the dentary teeth.
All right, Pete, that argument on the teeth makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm looking at the paper we were talking about, and their reconstruction of the lips and the jaws looks a little goofy to me. So could we go look at some jaws, how they would fit together, and compare it to this?
So let's go look at both Sue and Stan, and I'll show you why reconstructing them with the lips in those two illustrations is incorrect.
All right, now we've looked at the teeth. Now let's look a little bit at the jaws themselves. Now, Pete here is actually very qualified to talk about the jaws. Not only do we have a perfect one ready for us right now, he's mounted, what, over 80 skeletons of Stan the T-Rex here and, what, several hundred skulls? Is that right, Pete? That seems like...
That's right. And I, of course, worked on the original skeleton and skull, and so I have the advantage of being able to see, being able to take in more data than probably anybody else. Not that I'm smarter than anybody else, I just can see more things because I have that advantage of being able to see them every day, basically. And so there's something you notice about these skulls of Stan. Each time I work on them, I see something different. And one of the things that I noted on this is these depressions right here. So right inside the maxilla, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Anyway, there's enough depressions here that fill in where actually a point where each tooth sort of lines up with those in the dentary. And so we have this wonderful book that I was talking about earlier, which I really, really like, but just a small criticism about the work on that paper and this look that you get for T-Rex, where you see this kind of a mouth that looks, it looks like this, instead of like this. And so what we have then is the jaws don't stop here, as is indicated in the paper. The jaws keep closing until they zero in on those depressions. And so the jaws actually go down enough where the teeth sometimes are actually longer, actually go beyond the limit of the dentary itself. In this case, you don't see that, but you could actually conceive of that happening in some instances. So it's not this, it's this. And we can show you something more, Hunter, on Sue, because Sue is a bit deceptive because of what's been done during preparation. So let's go take a look at Sue.
We'll see you guys in just a moment. All right, Pete, so this is Sue, is that correct?
Yes, this is my best girl, Sue. And one of the things that probably the authors of the paper did not realize is that 2 of these teeth on Sue were shortened by the people who made the casts of Sue. They were actually shortened trying to make the teeth pretty much the same length throughout the jaw. But that's not the way real Tyrannosaurus rex are. And if you look at the picture of Sue when she was here in our lab after we had gotten her cleaned, you see her jaws are slammed shut. They're completely closed. And some of those teeth actually go below the bottom of the lower jaw. So let me show you why those teeth were in their natural position. And we know they were in their natural position and shouldn't have been shortened. So let's go look at Stan one more time. So we have been criticized about putting Stan's teeth in too long. Now many of these teeth were in this jaw, but some of them, granted, were out of the skull and we put them back into position. Now let me explain a little bit of something about how T-Rex teeth grow first. So this is a creation. We used Duffy to create this, showing how T-Rex grow. And the next tooth that's coming into place will always grow on the dentary on the inside and start resorbing the root from the inside and then finally to the outside and keep moving up using that material to make the next tooth. Well, the same is true for Stan. So this tooth has a resorption on the back, and at that place of resorption, you see another tooth coming in. This tooth could not go any further into the jaw than what it is right now. So this was the way it was in life.
So Pete, in the paper, they bring up varanids, right? And they use that as evidence that they had lips. What is your thoughts on that? And why do you disagree?
So varanids are lizards, and they're quite far away from the group that contains crocodiles, alligators, theropods, ornithischian dinosaurs. They're a long ways out of the clade. So if we look at phylogenetic bracketing, extant phylogenetic bracketing, like Whitmore has come up with, it's a great paper if you haven't read it. It uses crocodile as the ancestral form, a living ancestral form of theropods, and birds as the descendant of theropod dinosaurs. And neither one of those have lips, so therefore theropods probably did not have lips as well. So introducing something as far removed as lizards into this is somewhat problematic because they function differently. And they mentioned that they thought that this the orientation of the foramina on this varanid lizard is more like that on theropods than theropods are to crocodilians. But I would argue that's not correct. So varanids just have basically one line, so lizards, one line of foramina above the teeth and on the upper jaw and below the teeth on the lower jaw, whereas crocodilians have sort of a main line of foramen, but then they have other foramen kind of on both sides of that tooth row as well, you know, like lots more foramen. Very few foramen beyond that one row in lizards. And if we look at tyrannosaurs like Stan, we can see that Stan actually has this one nice row, but then they have lots more foramen all over both the lower and the upper jaw, which tells me they're more like crocodilians than they are like varanids. And they probably needed more foramen here because they're doing a lot of damage to their gums as they're biting through bones, just like crocodilians do. So they needed those to help heal the tissue around them. In fact, there's even some speculation that perhaps there was a keratinous covering, a thicker scale around the gums themselves to help protect the gums from injury when they're biting through bones.
Another argument that's presented in this paper is that the teeth have to be covered for the enamel not to erode or crack. And the argument goes that things like crocodilians who are in the water have the water there to keep their teeth moist. But that argument doesn't really make a lot of sense because there's lots of animals that have their teeth exposed. Like, let's look at a few mammals that do right now. Looking at this warthog, you can see that the lips do not protect a lot of their teeth. A lot of it's exposed, and they don't lose their enamel. Think of things like saber-toothed cats or saber-toothed deer, which aren't actually really deer, but we're not going to get into that right now. And mammals don't have the benefit that tyrannosaurs have, where they grow more teeth. Once mammals hit their second set, they're kind of done, which is why this argument really doesn't hold weight. And to give one last example of an animal like this, let's look at elephants. Yeah, I think they're doing just fine.
So another argument in the paper was that ornithischians like ceratopsians and duck-billed dinosaurs like the Sidmonosaurus senectans actually have extra oral tissue in the form of cheeks. And there's really good evidence to support this because we have not only a nice depression where you could fit a nice bunch of muscles in here to give a muscular cheek, which would help in chewing and grinding. And the other bit of information is these grinding teeth actually ground up foliage, both on ceratopsians, on the psittacosaurs, and on all these duck-billed dinosaurs that we have. And so they almost certainly did have cheeks. But you know what? They did not have lips. They instead had actually a keratinous covering, and you can see some of it preserved on the Senckenberg mummy here. And there's a number of Edmontosaurus that have keratinous structures preserved on their premaxillas, and some ceratopsians, and we had collected Lane, which is at the Houston Museum, which actually had a keratinous covering on part of its rostral, part of the upper jaw. So we know they did not have lips.
All right, Pete, so taking all of that evidence into account, the argument we're making is that tyrannosaurs did not have lips. Do you want to just give a quick summary of everything we've talked about?
Well, we talked about extant phylogenetic bracketing, showing that crocodiles and birds didn't have lips, and that middle portion, the theropods probably did not as well. We've seen that through the anatomy of the way the teeth grow and how the jaws work, actually function. We see that there's really not room for lips, or you'd cut the crap out of lips if you ever had to close your mouth all the way with lips in the way of your teeth. You'd have some problems, and a number of other things that showed us that even though absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, we also know that you've got to at least have some good data to support what you're trying to show. And I think that the data that they used was somewhat misused.
Mm-hmm. Somewhat lacking.
Somewhat lacking, yes. But this is the way science works. So we need to look at both sides of the argument, and I think we can make at least an equally compelling argument for them not having lips. So if you want to restore a theropod with lips, I mean, you can go ahead and do that, but at least close their mouths correctly and see what happens.
And with that, we will say goodbye to you guys. Make sure you let us know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think we're right? Do you think we're right? Are you wrong? Just let us know what you guys think. And that's how science works. We'll build off each other, and maybe we'll make a sequel with your guys' comments, seeing how the good points you guys bring up. But other than that, thank you guys very much. This is Pete and Hunter signing off. All right, so Pete, I was thinking, right?
Okay.
Well, we need a name for this video, right? What about Read My Lips?
How about your lying lips?
I like that. Ooh, I got it. Lips don't lie.
How about lipping off?
Okay. Putting lipstick on a pig.
Or loose lips sink ships.
That is not a real expression.
Oh, that really is. So during war, if you're in the Navy and you're talking to your wife who might be a spy off on the shore, and she tells people where your ship is, you're going to sink that ship. So that really is a thing.
Okay, I guess you got. Oh, I got it. Don't give me no lip.
Oh man, that's perfect. Let's go with that one.
All right, I'm down for that.
So during World War I,
Oh, okay.
there was actually a dinosaur that was sunk, probably by somebody's loose lips. And it was sunk by the German Navy in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And it carried one of Sternberg's dinosaur mummies. And there's a really good quote from him, or a good section of one of his books that talks all about it.
Fascinating.